The party I wasn't invited to. My name is Autumn Hayes and I'm 28 years old. I never thought I'd have to choose between love and self respect until I met James Blackwell. I come from a small town in Appleton, Wisconsin. Life wasn't fancy, but it was honest. My dad was a high school math teacher, and my mom ran a tiny bakery that smelled like cinnamon and warm bread. We weren't rich, but we had enough. Enough love, enough laughter, and enough lessons to know that happiness doesn't come from money, it comes from the people who sit beside you at dinner, not the price of the table you eat on. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in graphic design. Like most kids with big dreams and empty pockets, I moved to Chicago. My first job didn't pay much, but I got to be creative. I designed billboards, flyers, charity event banners, you name it. I was proud of what I did, even if my paycheck didn't show it. Then everything changed on a rainy April night. I was working at the Chicago Children's Hospital Gala, adjusting the signage I had designed. That's when I met James Blackwell. He stood tall in a perfect tux, but what I noticed wasn't his suit. It was the way he spoke to me. That logo design is brilliant, he said, nodding toward the display. The way you blended the children's drawings with the hospital logo, it tells a story without words. No one had ever complimented my work like that before, especially not someone like him. The Blackwell family was old money, very old. Their name was on hospital wings, university buildings, and city foundations. But James, he seemed different. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, and not once did he talk down to me. Before he left, he asked for my number. I hesitated. Guys like him didn't date girls like me, but his smile was kind, his eyes warm, and something inside me whispered, "Say yes." Our first date wasn't at some expensive rooftop bar, it was a tiny pizza shop, my idea. He laughed when we walked in. "Best deep dish I've ever had," he said with sauce on his chin. "Thank you for not pretending to be someone you're not." That night, I started falling for James. He wasn't flashy. He drove a normal car, wore simple clothes outside of work, and loved talking about books, art, sports, anything and everything. Being with him felt easy, natural, like we'd known each other forever. For the first 6 months, I didn't meet his family. Every time I asked, he brushed it off. "They can be a lot," he'd say. "I just want to keep this part of my life simple, just us." I didn't push. We were happy, and I believed that was enough. But eventually, I met them, the Blackwells. It was a Sunday brunch in their mansion. Yes, an actual mansion. From the moment I walked in, I knew I didn't belong. Eleanor Blackwell, James's mother, greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Autumn," she said, "that's an interesting dress. So bold for a family brunch." Richard, James's father, barely looked up from his Wall Street Journal. When I shook his hand, it felt like touching stone. Catherine, James's sister, looked me up and down before asking, "Where did you get your shoes?" "I think I saw them at the outlet mall." That brunch was the longest 2 hours of my life. "They're just protective," James said later. "After what happened with my ex, they don't trust easily. Apparently, his last girlfriend sold their private text to a gossip site. They'll come around," he promised. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. A year into dating, we moved in together. Eleanor sent us a gift, crystal wine glasses, and a note that read, "Maybe these will help elevate your entertaining." I smiled through the insult, wrote her a thank you card, and told myself she'd warm up eventually. Then James proposed. It was our 14-month anniversary. The ring was elegant, just my style. He got on one knee and said, "I want a real life with you, not like the life my family lives." I cried, said yes. I thought it meant I was finally one of them. I was wrong. When my parents wanted to host a small engagement dinner, James was nervous. "Just immediate family," he said. "Let's keep it intimate." I picked the perfect outfit, practiced polite conversations, and told myself this dinner would change everything. But I was walking into a trap. We arrived at the Blackwell estate, 3 acres of luxury in one of Chicago's richest suburbs. The house looked more like a museum than a home. I felt my stomach twist as we pulled into the driveway. "You look beautiful," James whispered, squeezing my hand. "They're going to love you." Inside, the air smelled like money and judgment. Eleanor kissed my cheeks without touching me. "Autumn, that dress is daring," she said. Dinner was like sitting in the middle of a play, where everyone knew their lines but me. They talked about yacht launches, hedge funds, and private schools I'd never heard of. When I tried to join in, Eleanor smiled and changed the topic. When I mentioned a design project I was proud of, she said, "James tells us you've never asked about his trust fund. That's refreshing." Michael, James's brother, asked about my parents. "No vacation home?" he said, pretending to be curious. "Not even a condo?" James sat beside me, quiet. By the time dessert came, a lemon souffle I could barely taste, I wanted to cry. But then it got worse. After dessert, Eleanor pulled out a stack of papers. A little something to keep things clear, she said. A prenup. I stared at it. I hadn't even taken off my napkin. If things don't work out, she said, sipping wine, you'll leave with what you brought in. Seems fair, don't you think? I looked at James. He didn't say a word. I stared at the stack of prenup papers, still trying to process what was happening. Was this a joke? Was this a test? No, this was real. I looked at Eleanor, her expression calm and cold, like she was offering me a napkin instead of a legal contract. I looked at James, and that's when it hit me. He already knew. He wasn't surprised. He didn't look shocked or angry. He just looked uncomfortable. I thought we'd talk about this together, I said softly, my voice shaking. James finally spoke. My parents just want to protect the family estate. It's not personal, not personal. They had just served me legal documents during dessert, like it was part of the menu. And the man I loved, the man who said he wanted a real life with me, had stayed quiet while they humiliated me. I didn't touch the papers. I didn't sign. I didn't speak. I just got up and left the table. James followed me out to the car. Autumn, please don't be upset. This is standard for families like mine. I'm not from a family like yours, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And I'm not marrying your family. I'm marrying you. Or at least I thought I was. He didn't argue. He didn't hold my hand. He didn't even try to stop me from crying. We drove home in silence. The next few days were quiet and tense. James acted like nothing had happened. He went to work. He sent me texts. But something had broken between us. He said he loved me. But he didn't stand up for me. Not when it counted. 1 week later, I packed a small bag and went back to Appleton. My parents were surprised to see me, but they didn't ask questions. My mom just hugged me tighter than she had in years, and my dad made pancakes like he used to when I was little. I cried in my childhood bedroom that night, not just from sadness, but from disappointment. I had trusted James with my heart. He handed it over to his mother's lawyers. I stayed in Wisconsin for a few weeks. I worked remotely, designed a few ad campaigns from my laptop, and tried to feel like myself again. Then something happened that would change everything. A letter arrived. Thick paper. Gold seal. My name written in neat cursive. At first I thought it was junk mail, but when I opened it, I nearly dropped it. It was from an attorney in New York City. A great aunt. I had only met once. My grandmother's older sister, Clara, had passed away. She had never married, had no children, and had lived a quiet life in Manhattan. I remembered meeting her once when I was about 12. She had given me a bracelet and told me I had good eyes. Truthful eyes. Turns out, Clara was not just a sweet old lady. She was rich. Very rich. And she had left everything to me. I blinked rereading the letter a dozen times. Her entire estate, including an apartment in Manhattan, stocks, art, and trust funds, was mine. Total value, $33 million. It didn't feel real. I flew to New York with my parents and met with the lawyers. They confirmed everything. My great aunt had quietly invested in tech startups in the early 2000s. She never talked about her wealth. She had no heirs until now. I sat in her apartment, surrounded by paintings and books, and cried. Not because of the money, but because someone had seen me, trusted me, chosen me. I stayed in New York for a month, sorting through her things. I hired a financial advisor, a lawyer, and a private manager. I didn't go on a shopping spree. I didn't buy a mansion. I just needed time to think. That's when James called. Hey, he said, like nothing had happened. Can we talk? I didn't say much, just that I was busy, that I needed space. But news spreads fast. The Blackwells found out. Suddenly, Eleanor was calling me dear. Catherine sent me a message on Instagram. Something about grabbing lunch next time I'm in the city. Even Michael sent a text. And James, he showed up at my apartment door in New York. Autumn, I miss you, he said. I made a mistake. I should have said something that night. I should have stood up for you. I stood there, arms crossed, heart pounding. Why now, James? Because I love you. He said all the right things. He looked sincere. He even had tears in his eyes. But I remembered the man who said nothing, while his family tried to erase my worth with a stack of paper. You let them treat me like I was trash, I said. You sat there and let them humiliate me. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. You were scared? I said, laughing bitterly. I was the one surrounded by strangers who looked at me like dirt. He apologized again, asked for another chance, said we could start over. I didn't give him an answer. I asked him to leave. That night, I sat by the window and watched the lights of New York City flicker like stars. And I realized something. Money doesn't change you. It shows you who people really are. And now, I had the power to choose, not just between James and his family, but between who I used to be and who I was becoming. I wasn't just Autumn Hayes from Appleton, Wisconsin anymore. I was a woman with options, and I was finally going to live like it. I didn't reply to James for a long time after he left my apartment. I needed time, not to forget, but to remember who I really was before I lost myself in someone else's world. In New York, everything felt new. I wasn't living in Clara's apartment just for the view or the address. It felt like space to heal,
A fresh start in a city that didn't know my past or care about my last name. Every morning I'd walk to a nearby cafe. I'd sit by the window with my laptop, working on freelance projects for clients who loved my ideas and didn't care who I was dating. I didn't tell anyone about the money, not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want it to define me. It was a gift, not a personality. One day I donated $100,000 anonymously to the Chicago Children's Hospital Gala, the same event where I first met James. I asked them to use it for the Children's Art Therapy program. No names, no credits. That's what Clara would have wanted. That's what I wanted. But not everyone was ready to let me move on quietly. One afternoon, I received an email from Catherine Blackwell. Subject line, family is forever. It was short, sharp, and perfectly fake. I know things got off to a rough start, but let's not throw away what could still be a beautiful connection. I'm in New York next week. Let's do lunch at Le Jardin. My treat. Love, C. I didn't reply. 2 days later, a bouquet of white roses arrived. No card. But I knew who sent them, and I knew what they meant. The Blackwells weren't used to being ignored, especially not by someone who now had a net worth they could no longer look down on. It wasn't just about money. It was about control. They had lost it, and they wanted it back. A week later, I was invited to speak at a design conference in Brooklyn. It was the first time anyone had ever asked me to share my creative story. I was nervous but proud. After my speech, a woman from a tech company approached me with an offer. Lead their new creative department. Full freedom, full benefits, full respect. I accepted, and just like that, I had a new purpose. Not just healing from heartbreak, but building something of my own. Still, there were quiet nights when I thought about James, about our pizza dates, our late-night talks, the version of him that felt real. Was it all fake, or did he change under pressure from his family?
One rainy Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. It was James again. I'm outside. I looked out the window. There he was, soaked in rain, holding a paper bag. I hesitated, then opened the door. Pizza, he said, lifting the bag. Like old times, I let him in. We didn't speak for a few minutes, just sat there, steam from the pizza box rising between us. Then he said it. I broke your heart, and I hate myself for that. I didn't respond right away. He kept talking. I thought I could protect you by staying quiet. But silence isn't love, it's cowardice, and I was a coward. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. I recognized it instantly. The prenup. I never signed it either, he said. I told them if they made you sign, I'd walk away. I looked at him. But you didn't walk away, James. You stayed. You watched. I was scared, he whispered. I thought I could fix it later, but I ruined everything. He wasn't trying to win me back. Not with money, not with promises, just honesty. And that made it harder, because part of me still loved him. But I was different now, stronger, wiser. Not the girl who sat quietly while others questioned her worth. I needed to find myself again, I said. And I'm not sure that version of me fits into your world anymore. I don't want you to fit into my world, he said. I want to build a new one with you. It sounded beautiful, but words were easy. I needed action. I'm not saying no, I told him. But if we try again, it's going to be on my terms. No secrets, no silence, no contracts. He nodded. And for the first time, I saw something real in his eyes. Not the charm, not the wealth, but humility. He left that night without asking for more. And for the first time, I felt like the one in control of my own story. Weeks passed. I focused on my new job, started building a team, and launched a side project, helping young women from small towns break into the creative industry. One day, I got a letter in the mail from Eleanor Blackwell, a handwritten note. Autumn, I was wrong about you. Wealth doesn't create character, it reveals it. You've shown more grace and strength than I expected. If you and James ever find your way back to each other, I hope you'll consider a fresh start with us all. Eleanor, I didn't know if it was sincere, but I smiled anyway because I didn't need their approval anymore. I had my own name, my own power, my own story, and it was just getting started. Weeks turned into months. New York became more than a fresh start. It became home. The sounds, the smells, the fast pace. It was nothing like Appleton, Wisconsin, but somehow it felt right. I had created a rhythm. Early mornings spent sketching designs in my journal, late nights sipping herbal tea on the fire escape, the city humming softly beneath me. I wasn't running anymore. I was rooting myself. My job at the tech company flourished. I led a team of young, brilliant minds who brought color and energy into every meeting. For the first time, I wasn't just creating, I was leading, and I was good at it. The board noticed. They offered me a full-time executive role, vice president of creative strategy. I signed the contract with a steady hand, no prenups, no second guessing, just a clear acknowledgement of my value. And yet, even as my professional life thrived, my personal life stayed quiet. James and I had spoken a few times since that night. He would text occasionally, never pushing, never begging, just gentle check-ins. I saw your campaign ad on the subway. Looks incredible. Hope the city's treating you well. You'd laugh. Mom asked me if I wanted to start therapy. That one made me pause, because if Eleanor Blackwell was encouraging therapy, then something had truly changed. But I didn't reply. I was scared that if I opened the door even a little, the whole past would flood back in, and I wasn't ready. One Sunday afternoon, while walking through Central Park, I spotted a girl sitting alone on a bench. She couldn't have been more than 20. Tired eyes, cheap sketchbook, worn out shoes. I recognized her instantly. She was me, just a few years back. I sat down next to her and asked if she was okay. She looked startled but nodded. I just don't know if I'm good enough, she whispered. Everyone else has better gear, better connections. I'm just trying to make it through art school without drowning. I didn't give her a speech. I just handed her my card. If you ever need help, advice, or someone to look over your portfolio, email me. You're not alone. That day sparked something I didn't know I needed. I started a mentorship program for low income women in creative fields. Every Friday night, I met with small groups. We didn't just talk about design, we talked about resilience, self worth, and how to reclaim your narrative when the world tries to write it for you. The press picked it up. A few articles praised Autumn Hayes, designer, healer, disruptor, but I didn't do it for headlines. I did it for every young woman who'd ever been made to feel less than. Then came the unexpected. James reached out again, this time with more than a message. It was an invitation. I'm hosting a charity exhibit. It's in Chicago. All proceeds go to children's creative therapy. Your designs inspired the theme. I'd be honored if you came. No pressure. Just show up if you want. I stared at the screen for a long time. Old me would have said no without thinking. But this wasn't old me. I had nothing to prove, nothing to fear. I booked a flight, not for James, for myself, to see if I could face the past and still walk away whole. The exhibit was stunning, bright, raw, real. Paintings by children who had been through trauma, displayed next to digital installations inspired by their stories. At the center of the gallery was a sculpture, a twisting rising shape made of broken glass and melted metal. A plaque underneath read, Reformed by Fire. I felt my breath catch. It was a visual metaphor for what we both had become. James stood at the far end of the room, talking to a young boy with a prosthetic leg. He wasn't in a tuxedo, no spotlight, no pretension. He looked present. When he finally saw me, his face lit up, but he didn't rush over. He walked slowly, like he respected my space now. Thank you for coming, he said softly. This is beautiful, I replied. We talked for a few minutes about the art, the cause, the kids, not about us. It wasn't awkward. It was warm, like two people who had loved and lost, but were finding something new in the ashes. Before I left, he handed me a small envelope. Don't open this here, he said. Open it when you're ready. And if you never are, that's okay too. Back in New York, I waited 3 days. Then I opened it. Inside was a letter. Autumn, I've spent most of my life trying to live up to a name, a legacy, a list of expectations. You showed me that love isn't about pleasing the crowd. It's about protecting the heart standing beside you. I failed you once. I may not deserve a second chance, but if you ever want to rebuild, as equals, as partners, as friends, I'm ready. No conditions, no contracts, just truth. There was no pressure in his words, no guilt, just honesty. I folded the letter and set it on my desk. Then I turned off my phone and sat in silence, listening to the rain tap against my window. My heart didn't race like before. It beat steady, because for the first time in a long time, I knew whether or not James Blackwell was in my future. I was finally fully in charge of my own. 3 weeks passed since I opened James's letter. I read it once, then again, then tucked it away in a drawer, beside my old sketchbooks and the silver bracelet my mom gave me when I left for college. I didn't respond, not because I didn't care, but because I was still figuring out what I wanted. Life didn't stop moving, just because my heart was catching up. My mentorship program expanded. We got a grant that allowed us to launch free workshops across the city, from Brooklyn to the Bronx. Girls came with stories written on their faces, foster care, bullying, homelessness, dreams no one else believed in. I listened, I shared, I taught, and every time I stood in front of them, I felt stronger. Not because I was healed, but because I was healing out loud. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. Real paper, handwritten. It wasn't from James. It was from Eleanor Blackwell. I stared at the envelope, stunned. The woman who once sent me passive-aggressive wine glasses had sent me this. I opened it slowly, expecting cold words wrapped in polished politeness. But what I read wasn't what I expected at all. Autumn, you were right to walk away. I may never understand your world, but I have come to respect your strength within it. James has changed. I don't say that easily. The boy who once bent to our expectations now challenges us. Because of you, I still don't know what a happy ending looks like for the two of you, but I hope, whatever you choose, it includes peace. Eleanor Blackwell. I read it twice. It wasn't an apology.
but it was something closer to grace than I ever expected from her. It made me think, not about her or James, but about me. What do I want now? Love, maybe, but not the kind that cost me my dignity or my voice. One evening, I sat with my mother on a park bench near the Hudson River. She was in town visiting, a warm smile always on her face. She handed me a folded paper napkin, my favorite bakery trick from her. She used to pack my lunches with scribbled notes. This one read, "You can be in love and still choose yourself." I laughed and looked at her. "Mom, what if I miss him? But not the old him, the man he's becoming." She nodded. "Then don't chase or wait. Just live. And if your paths cross again, you'll both know who you are this time." She was right. I had been waiting for a clear answer, when maybe the answer was to stop waiting altogether. Weeks passed. The seasons changed. And one day, while setting up for a community exhibit in Harlem, I looked up, and there he was, James. Not in a suit, not with flowers, just standing quietly, watching a little girl explain her crayon mural to her mom. When he saw me, he didn't rush over. He smiled, soft and genuine. "Is this your work?" he asked, gesturing to the space. "The art, the laughter." "No," I said. "This is theirs. I just gave them the walls." We stood there, in a quiet corner, surrounded by joy. James looked down, then back at me. "I'm not here to win you back," he said. "I'm here because I realized I never truly saw how powerful you were. I only saw how much I wanted you close." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He didn't ask for anything, and I didn't offer anything either. We just existed there for a moment, in shared understanding. Maybe this was closure, or maybe a new beginning. Later that night, I walked home alone. The city lights twinkled, like old friends. My phone buzzed, but I didn't check it. Instead, I stepped into my apartment, dropped my bag, and sat by the window. This was my life now. Full, quiet, messy, beautiful. I wasn't waiting for anyone to rescue me. I had rescued myself. And I knew, deep down, if love came again, in any form, it would be because it recognized my worth, not because it questioned it. Because I was no longer the girl hoping to be chosen. I was the woman who had finally chosen herself.